Good afternoon. I'd like to call the board meeting together for the St. Joseph Public Library. I would like to begin with a statement about our meeting. At regular meetings, the public is invited to address the board during the public comment period of the agenda. Individuals may only speak.
I will never listen to this, so.
Each individual must use their own allotted time. It cannot be given to another speaker. If you wish to give public comment, you must sign it at the beginning of the meeting. When your name is called, speakers may approach the podium. They shall properly identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Personnel issues are not to be addressed during open sessions of the library board. Please be respectful during the comment period. This includes not interrupting others and ending your comments when your time is up. Since the board acts as a unified body and has individual members, the board listens and does not despise the public comments. Having said that, we will call the meeting to order. I will determine the quorum. Ruth?
Present, and I have my materials.
Alan?
I am also president. President at my I'm not president.
Is it elevation in your mind?
No,
Okay.
I'm at this level.
Nicole?
Present, and I have my materials.
Christine?
Present, and I have my materials.
Terry?
Present, and I have my material.
Ann?
Present, and I have my material.
And I am present. I have my materials. We will begin with the approval of the consent agenda. You all have it in front of you. I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Mover is second to approve the consent agenda. I will call the roll. I'll start with Ann.
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Nicole.
Aye.
Ally.
Aye.
Ruth.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The consent agenda has been approved. We will now have the director's report.
Thank you. So it has been a busy month. The leadership team, facilities and communications manager, met with Zach Benedict from MKM to begin the facilities planning process. We'll have community surveys for most of September, followed by community input meetings. And then we'll do a handful of focus groups as well. We'll have a branch manager survey go out, and MKM will meet with the staff at all of those locations to talk about their needs and their wants, and to see what we need for our neighborhood locations. On the personnel report, you'll find a large number of resignations. Most of those were our summer interns, and then we had a handful of staff members who are off to college or grad school. So congratulations to them. And the situation is not as dire as that report might appear to be. And then, of course, Lisa O'Brien is shifting as we are looking at our facilities master plan to the role of director of special projects. You may recall that she did all of the planning for the move back into this building. So she'll help us manage our facilities planning projects and also work on system-wide collaborative projects, which she's a great collaborator. So she'll work on our intranet and get that really robust, and a number of other system-wide. Oh, we need a disaster plan. That's it's not the sexiest of all things, but very necessary. We had a ribbon cutting at the Tut branch for our solar panels that are newly installed. Those were funded in part by the city of South Bend, and that's a great partnership with them to generate some renewable energy. And we now have a monitor inside where it tracks how much energy we're generating on any given day, and we think that'll be a great educational piece for our patrons as well. We're doing year 2 of SB Ready, so Jill Williams, our youth services manager, and her team are working hard to get that going. We'll get the now first graders their cards and get them back in the library, and then we'll get every kindergarten student in South Bend schools, including the empowerment zone library cards, and we'll bring those kindergartners back in. So It's a really awesome project and it's really a ton of work, but I think it's well worth it. And really core to our mission. Both Art 4 and the Civic Theater had shows here the last few weeks, so I came to the opening of Pride and Prejudice, which was out here, and we did get rained out, but the way they use this entire courtyard in their show is super cool. So if you get an opportunity to go to any of those shows in the courtyard, they're awesome. And we know that providing this type of programming, every show has an option where we have tickets for our patrons, or there's a pay what you can option. So we think this is a great way to increase access to the arts for our community. And then over the last few months, our second floor gallery space has really been activated in I think, exciting way. We featured the art of Kamika Perry, who's a South Bend but Jamaican native, and her art is amazing and beautiful. And if you missed that one, you should go see her at, where's her art? Perry and Vine. Then we worked with Neighbor to Neighbor and United Religious Communities for an exhibit called Blurred Lives, Refugees and Friends. And that was actually a really powerful exhibit too. And right now we're showcasing photography for middle and high school students. And the next exhibit will be art from Kaylee Pritchard, whose work came out of Hospice's bereavement art counseling program. So if you're ever around and want to stop by the second floor gallery, there's always something going on. And that's it.
I just want to add to it. I know that we have things going on every single day, but the movie tomorrow night, Last Resort, is certainly worth mentioning since it made the newspaper yesterday.
Thank you, Christine. And that's with the Jewish Federation.
Anthony Sweet's South Beach photographs, but I've been told from many directions that it certainly is worth seeing the movie and then going to the art exhibit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a number of, maybe Jay will have that in your report on the middle kindergartens, getting cards, in your report?
Yeah, there were 1,100 cards issued.
100 kindergartens,
So there'll be first graders this year,
okay.
and then we'll get a new batch. We
Okay.
don't know how many. Lots. We'll make lots more cards.
We can't hear you.
Is that on this one?
Can you hear? Oh, I mean, I get close. Okay, I asked Stephanie how many kindergartners got cards, and she said 1,100. Who are now to be first graders this year. So so now we have new kindergartners coming in this year. How many we don't know yet, but they're out there somewhere. Okay. Any other questions for Stephanie on the board? If not, I intend a motion to approve the director's report.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and second to accept the director's report. I will call the roll. I'll start with Ruth.
Aye.
Ann Allen.
Aye.
Nicole.
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
Ann.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, been moved and approved. Patronage report.
All right, so in July, we had.
You might want to use that.
We have.
Okay, so in July, we had 58,000 people visit all of our locations. And that is a 22% increase from last year. So basically, my trend, as always, is that we're seeing more people come into the library. We're seeing more people get library cards, and it's year upon year, which is really wonderful. We also had 123,000 circulations across our library system. We had 127 programs, and that had about 2,441 people in attendance. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the areas where we're seeing a lot of growth from last year. You also notice on some of the charts, Wi-Fi use especially has been increasing at a really, I think, extraordinary rate, which just shows what a valuable service that is in our community. So that's all I have for you today.
Any questions for any of the board? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve her report.
So moved.
There's a second. We move the second to approve the patronage report. I will call the roll. Ann.
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ruth,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Financial reports.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the financial report for, the month ended, so we have, a couple of things to note. We have not received an exit, meeting with our audit from Crow for SBOA. So we're still waiting on that one, and Krugel Lawton is still, working on the, component unit audit. So that is not in completion yet, they're still asking questions. Our organizational share draft, for our operating checking account is $7,542,049. As you know, a lot of our, funds are in our investment in Trust Indiana. Our yield for the month is, 5.1301%. We have, interest and reinvestments, as of July 31st for our general account, $168,967, rainy day, $88,508, gift funds, $8,551, and for alert, $56,066, for a total interest of, $322,093.03. So that is where we are, and you all will hear from me a little bit later.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve financial report? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the financial report. I will call the roll. Start with Christine,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Ruth,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Approved. Do we have any unfinished business from the board? None that I can see. So on to new business. Jeanette, this is our budget hearing for the first committee that should come.
One second. Okay, so this is the 2024 budget hearing for the Central County Public Library.
It's on the screen behind you if you want to. Do it now, it's right there. There we go.
So, we're really gonna go through how we came about this budget, not gonna, the budget is in the packet, so if there's any questions at the end, you definitely can ask those questions. But I want to give you an idea of how we came about, where we're gonna take the library's budget, for the 2024, year. So the budget methodology and processes, what we did was we analyzed, the personnel needs for, the library to ensure that we had enough within the budget, to deal with any personnel or budgeting, that we need to do as we come into once we get the budget completed and we come into November and we need to, finalize personnel decisions. We wanted to make sure that we had enough in the budget, to do those items. We also, earlier than usual, we asked for our departments to give us their budget requests, so that they could be in the thought process for, the budget for this year. We also wanted to make sure that we align the budget, closer to, actual. Obviously, last year, Stephanie and myself were new when the budget came. So there were some things that I needed to look at and analyze to make sure that we were actually budgeting to closer to what we were doing in actual categories across the budget. Yes. Okay, there, thank you. And we also, as always, we always have to look at the circuit breaker. What is the circuit breaker impact on our full budget? We wanted to make sure that when we look at the circuit breaker, that we want to reduce any shortfalls with our supplies and services and not impact as much for our personnel and our benefits. So we looked at that to make sure that we could be in alignment once we figure out what circuit breaker will actually be. We also anticipate our spending for our building and repairs to make sure that we can do things for the branches. If something goes out, have that, anything like that, that we have the funds available to repair those buildings and work through projects as we can continue to go year by year. And then you'll also, if you've seen the budget for a few years, we've also expanded and merged some lines together to make more sense for the analysis as we go forward and we present the budget to the board. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that we did is that we aligned our budget with a strategic plan. One of the pieces is to grow and sustain readers. So we wanted to make sure that we align the budget and with our collection development budget. Our minimum is to be 8%, but we are at 13.57%. So we wanted to make sure that we have a robust collection development budget available for what we need to do for next year. We also need to build a strong community, again, ensuring that we have the personnel, we can have the reach to be able to come into the South Bend community or beyond to get the best and the brightest to work here at the St. Joe County Public Library. We did increase our budget line to ensure that we had that, and we try to stay between 60 and 65%. And we increased that from last year, 6.79%. Thank you. And then also with the strategic plan, ensure the library sustainability. We wanted to increase the personnel budget to make sure that we could keep and retain individuals, and then also align our expense categories so that we could better analyze what exactly is going on in the library on a day-to-day basis. So just a quick, go back one more, please. Thank you. This is just those of you that are visual learners, just to see some of those numbers visually shown. As you can see where we are with our salaries, materials, and services, capital outlays, and supplies. And again, then broken down for our salaries and benefits. We do have, can you go one more slide for me? Thank you. We do have some budget challenges that we'll always potentially have, and for 2024 and beyond. And one is obviously circuit breaker. Last year, we were able to, we had a higher circuit breaker, but it actually came in with a lower amount, which gave us an additional $1 million. But right now our circuit breaker is at $4 million. And so we have to manage our budget within that, knowing that we will potentially not get that $4 million going forward. We also had to manage to some growth rate changes. We did have a 4% growth rate, and how they had done the growth rate previously was that it was basically a 5-year average, 1 year rolling off. The state has actually locked in that, and it is now at 4%. So we anticipate that it will be 4% going forward. And just to give you a thought of where it was, last year was only 2%. Was the growth rate for the state. So when that averages out as it goes forward, we could have had higher or lower, but last year was a pretty low growth rate. So we're at 4%, and we'll see where we go going forward, locked in at 4%. And the numbers. So our max budget is about 2.9 million. 29 million. With that circuit breaker of 4 million, our expected revenue is about almost 25 million. So you can see the breakdown for the general fund, our debt services rainy day, LRF, and we do plan on spending our LRF a bit more to deal with the buildings, for the other branches, to make sure that we, are improving and doing those things, especially with our facilities master plan coming out, to make sure that, those things, we have enough funds to do those projects. And then as the board knows, we did create a, self-insurance reserve fund, so we are moving dollars into that fund to ensure that we have, what we need for our, insurance claims. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for acronyms for the public, could you explain more?
Library Reserve Improvement Fund, library, say,
Library Improvement Reserve Fund.
there you go. I have it in the wrong. Library Improvement Reserve Fund. So those funds have to be used to improve the library. We can't use those for other things. We can't use that for the collection. We can't use that for personnel. That is to sustain our buildings.
And does the, budget include the very generous, return on investment? that we're
Yeah,
getting now?
so when we added in the miscellaneous revenue, we did, forecast what we potentially would have, with the trust in the end dollars.
And I also want to, I always like to see when the budget is tied to the strategic plan, so thank you for those slides.
The other questions? This is not for approval, this is for our information, correct?
Yes.
It'll be for approval next month.
Okay, so we'll put the budget next month. Any other questions? If not, budget that, thank you.
I have one more thing.
Okay. Go on.
All right.
Ready.
So I do have a resolution, to transfer funds, within our operating account. As I stated at the beginning, when we first, last year at this time, when we created the budget, Stephanie was new, I was literally a couple weeks later. And so the budget wasn't exactly in the categories that it needed to be, exactly where we wanted those to be. So, now that we're halfway through the year, we kind of can see where those buckets should be. And what we want to do is ensure that we move some dollars from other categories to make sure that they are in the right places. So this is what that transfer between funds is for.
Does anybody have a copy of that?
That should have been in
Let's get back in there.
in there.
The resolution to transfer funds. These are approval, correct?
Yes.
Correct. We have a motion to approve the resolution to transfer funds.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, 2 more seconds, okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution to transfer funds within the library operating fund. I will call the roll for approval. Ruth,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
and
Aye.
I vote aye. Approved. Okay.
Development.
Yep.
So that's me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Stephanie will talk about the collection policy update.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna hold that so I don't have to move over. So at the last board meeting, you asked me to review our collection development policy and that those updates were sent out to you. With the primary goal being to clarify the process of appealing to the board. And so you'll see you have a paper in front of you. I did one last sentence clarification on there. It's highlighted in yellow. So that's that piece of the policy that you'll be voting on tonight, but the request for the appeal must be submitted in writing to the executive director within 30 days on the date of reconsideration of that notification. Such appeals will be held at a regular board meeting The patron who's appealing would be given notice of the date and time and given time on the agenda to speak, 3 minutes, followed by a presentation by the reconsideration committee in order to explain why they did not move the material. And then the board will do what the board does after that presentation. So that's the most clarifying part. Everything else is little bits and pieces, and you've had that. So if you have questions, now's the time.
Any questions from the board? No? Now we'll entertain a motion to approve the library collection update. So moved. Second,
Second,
it's been moved and second that we approve the collection policy update. I will call the roll. Ruth,
aye.
Ally,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay. Other business from the board. Hearing none. News and education.
We have tonight, for news and education, Dawn Matthews, who's our Director of Branch Services. And she'll be talking with you a little bit about, the role of the public library in the community. Particularly regarding our collections, selection, and reconsideration.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about intellectual freedom and how it impacts our collection here at St. Joe County Library. The First Amendment to the Constitution protects our freedom to read, to listen, to write, to speak, and to protest about our beliefs and opinions with protection from retaliation. Our public libraries are a symbol of freedom of speech and are fundamental to our democracy. This freedom can't be taken lightly. There are some countries where authors and journalists are threatened or imprisoned for what they write or say. And citizens don't have free access to read what they'd like, and their access to the internet is highly restricted. An informed public is important for a healthy democracy. Public libraries have a mission to provide free access to books and information for all people, and this includes access for all ages. Minors are also protected by their own First Amendment rights. Public libraries are important for the next generation of thoughtful readers and responsible citizens. A parent or caregiver always has the first and most important role in teaching and guiding their child. It is the parent or caregiver's responsibility to decide what their child can read and what programs or experiences their child may participate in. We are obligated to include materials offering different viewpoints, and some of these materials may be considered controversial or offensive to some. It is okay if an individual disagrees with the library book or program and decides not to select that book or attend that program. In fact, each of us in this room has books in the library we personally don't agree with. While I'm sure we each have good intentions, if one by one we remove books according to our personal values, there wouldn't be anything left. Our shelf would be bare. So I'd like to share a few diverse titles that we have in our collection. Back here. We have the Socialist Manifesto and How Capitalism Saved America. I have two teen books here. A gay romance, Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe. And I have Mandy's Song, a heterosexual couple's story by a local author, I might add. And we have Simply Christian, Why Christianity Makes Sense, and Spiritual Gems of Islam. Last set, I have Barack Obama selected speeches and the greatest speeches of Donald J. Trump. So that's just, we really do try to provide balance, and we also always take suggestions, so if there's something that you don't see in the plan, you're always welcome to suggest the title for us to purchase. I'd like to share the criteria that we use for selecting books. The library's collection development policy serves as a guide for the selection of materials, and we use 5 major guidelines. The first, the American Library Association statements, including the Library Bill of Rights, freedom to read, and diversity in collection development. The second, the needs and demands of people and community organizations. Third, the merit of the work as a whole, not by selected or random passages. 4, the obligation to reflect within the collection differing points of view on controversial subjects. And 5, the last one, the existing collection budget and services. You might wonder how we decide the location of books in the library. We rely on our professional collection development and technical services librarians to determine the appropriate location for each title added to the collection. They classify a book based on author and publisher information for the intended audience, professional reviews of the title, and share data on where other libraries have placed the book. Our librarians have undergone rigorous schooling and preparation to decide the best place to put every title in our collection for our community of readers to easily access them. We do not typically remove books from a children or teen area because that denies access and is censorship. For example, if we move a teen title to the adult section, that teen or parent caregiver will more than likely never find it. You may not want your child or teen to check out a title that does not follow your personal values, but there are many other parents in the community who would want that book on the shelf in the teen area for their child or teen if they choose to read it. We leave it up to the parents or caregivers to know what is best for their child or teen. And as indicated earlier, we allow, of course, people to disagree with a title that we have purchased or where we have placed it. We have a reconsideration of material form for that. And the Library Reconsideration Committee takes these appeals very seriously. The public library plays an important role in our democracy. We are used by a diverse community and provide services and a collection that meets the needs of every individual and family in our community. I'd like to close by sharing a quote from the former U.S. Poet Laureate, Rita Dove, and I might add, it's her birthday today. The library is an arena of possibility, opening both a window into the soul and a door onto the world. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, it's time for our hearing from visitors. I'm going to repeat what I opened the meeting with, so everybody who was not here could hear it again. At regular meetings, the public is invited to address the board during the public comment period on the agenda. Individuals may only speak once for 3 minutes during this time. Each individual must use their allotted time. It cannot be given to another speaker. If you wish to give public comment, you must sign it at the beginning of the meeting, which I'm sure I have a list of those people. When your name is called, speakers may approach the podium. They should properly identify themselves by stating their name and their address for the record. Personal issues are not to be addressed during open sessions of the library board. Please be respectful during the comment period. This includes not interrupting others and ending your comments when your time is up. Since the board acts as a unified body and not as individual members, the board listens but does not respond to public comment. I have a list, we give a list of people to speak. Podium is Jenny will call up. Oh, Jenny will call up. You will be timed. You want to?
I'll get this.
Okay.
Right to Jenny. Go ahead, finish.
Okay.
Sorry, that's your turn.
I'll let Stephanie do this. We invite your public comments, but once again, we do not respond to them in public, so there you go.
First name on the list is Laura Fuderer. And I apologize if I make any mistakes on anyone's first or last name.
That was pretty good.
Excuse me, quickly again, is there 30 seconds?
I'll start the timer is once you, after you've given your, information, I'll start the timer and then you'll get a 30-second. When you have 30 seconds left, I'll let you know. I've got 30 seconds.
So I'm going to be brief. Laura Fuderer, what else did you want for?
The address,
Evan, 18485 Garwood Court. I too have been appalled over the years at what children are exposed to in various media. The violence and misogyny and sexuality on TV, in movies, on the internet, in video games that children play. And this type of content is sometimes present in library materials as well. I mean, these are issues that have been addressed in literature since the beginning of literature. But is it for me as a library user to tell other users what they or their children can access or read or view? I don't think so. I trust our librarians. They have been trained in what is called collection development, selecting material that is appropriate to their particular community. We can rely on them to shelve books in sections that are appropriate, whether it's children's, teens, or adult sections. But I don't think the librarians should have to patrol those sections to prevent any library user, regardless of age, from accessing them. If parents think that some books are inappropriate for their children, I believe it's for the parents to govern their children and not to expect the librarians to act in loco parentis, that is, in place of parents. Our society has become much too dependent on other entities looking after their children. State legislatures like Indiana's have even begun punishing valued people like teachers and librarians if they don't. Maybe it's time parents took on more responsibility themselves. Thank you.
Ryan Posh.
Hello, I'm really not comfortable sharing my address publicly, especially with news cameras and things. Can I show you my ID to confirm my identity? Is that
Did
acceptable?
he sign his address?
I did sign my address, yeah. Would you want to see my ID? Okay. Very good. I would like to start by thanking the board for their service to this community. The position that you're in is not always an easy one, and I hope that we as concerned community members and you as board members can find common ground and work together in our discussion today. I would like to discuss the book, This Book is Gay. The target audience for this book is young adults, particularly children ages 14 to 17. This book discusses, promotes, and gives the audience clear directions on the use of sex apps, and specifically highlights Grindr. All sex apps, like Grindr, maintain that users must be 18 or older. In other words, if a minor from the intended audience uses these apps as explicitly encouraged in this book, he would have to firstly lie about his age, and secondly, assume that he's connecting on a sex app with an adult. Any book that simultaneously includes the following passages should not be made available to kids under the legal age of consent. On page 160, about using a sex app, quote, if you want to do a sex meet the trick in a public place for a drink first. Presented simultaneously with page 174. At the end of the day, if you want to have anal sex, one of you is going to have to go top, the one who puts his willy in, and the other bottom, the one who gets his willy up the bum. Or with page 172, which discusses, quote, rubbing the head of his cock back and forth with your hand, and quote, letting a guy come in your mouth. Sex between minors, the direct audience of this book, and adults required by sex apps is a felony known as statutory rape, whether gay or straight. This book is gay, targets young adults, and repeatedly encourages them to explore, such as on page 182, saying if you experiment whenever possible, explore every corner of your desire, you'll be enjoying sexy sex in no time. With this advice, we may hear of more cases like Saponaro versus Grindr, where a gay man tried to sue Grindr after being arrested for having sex with a 13-year-old boy who lied about his age on Grindr. In fact, more than 100 men across the US have faced charges since 2015, the same year this book was published in the US, related to sexually assaulting or attempting to meet minors for sex on Grindr. Section 5.11 of the Public Service Policy states that the St. Joe County Public Library, quote, blocks internet material that is obscene, pornographic, or harmful to minors. Why not adopt similar and consistent language for the collection policies? I recommend adding something like the following. At the discretion of the St. Joe County Library board members, materials that are considered obscene or may be harmful to minors will not be kept in youth sections. This would ensure that the board still maintains discretion in this area, while it also gives the necessary latitude to keep material that could be harmful to minors away from minors. After the July board meeting, I recognize in many of you a realization that something should be done here. You have the power and the necessary facts needed to make the right decision to amend the policies such that these harmful and obscene books are removed from the youth sections. If any of you agree, I ask that the board members propose a motion today to add this type of specific language to the necessary policies. Thank you.
Elizabeth Murphy.
Hello, can I do the same thing with my address? Can I not say my address publicly? Because
We don't fill an address.
okay, but there's also a room full of hostile people here who don't need my address. The last guy just, you should know. Yeah, go ahead. My God. I guess I want to give that guy my address now, huh?
No, just give your speech, please.
Indiana law defines obscenity in part as material, including books, that describe or represent nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse. We know that these laws exist and that obscenity towards minors is not protected as free speech. And yet today we are faced with the question, is it the role of the library to provide obscene, pornographic, and harmful material to minors? That is really the question at hand here, and frankly, it should be an easy one to answer. In fact, you already have answered that question in your own policy with regard to internet use. Section 511 of your policy states that the library, and I quote, block materials considered obscene, child pornography, or harmful to minors. This approach to obscene and pornographic material on the internet is perfectly standard, reasonable one. Yet the letter I received from your collection development manager a few days ago refused to take this stance with regard to the physical collections. His response was, and I quote, the collection contains materials that express a wide variety of views and are not suitable for all ages and abilities. The library will designate no material, therefore, as harmful to minors. No material is to be designated as harmful to minors. This statement is in direct contradiction to your internet policy, which I read above, which does explicitly prohibit materials that are considered harmful to minors. Why are you intentionally abdicating all standards towards your physical collection for minors that you currently have in place for your internet policy? How is it a coherent position to say that the very same material that is banned on the computer at the library is not only allowed, but absolutely must be promulgated in its physical form on the shelves? What, if anything, is the purpose of a teen collection or a kid's collection, if not to say the books in those collections are suitable for those age groups? If you're going to have different collections in the library based on age at all, then it's a bare minimum. It should mean that from the perspective of the library, at least, those books in those collections are appropriate for those ages, obviously. We all at least used to understand that not all material is appropriate for all contexts and all age groups. This is not book banning. It is not a question of free speech. No one is saying the book can't exist or that adults can't have access to obscene material if they must. We are simply asking that obscene, pornographic, and harmful material to minors be prohibited from the collections of the library that are aimed towards minors. Therefore, I would propose the library add the following statement to its existing collection policy. The collections for minors will not contain materials considered obscene, pornographic.
30 seconds.
To minors. That is what I think your policy should be. But if you refuse to adopt that policy suggestion, then I'm asking you to just be transparent about what you are doing. In that case, I would propose the board update its policy to say that the collection for minors will include obscene, pornographic, and inappropriate materials to minors that would have been blocked on the internet in your own library. As a board, you would probably like to remain neutral on this issue. However, there is no neutral action here. The book is either allowed or it's not allowed. Your policy either allows obscene
Time is
materials
up.
or it does not. As it now it does, and it does so.
Time is up.
Barbara Jones?
I'll have.
Okay. Marie Ferraro,
Okay.
Cecilia Hess, one second, I'm sorry. Also not comfortable sharing my address, but I'm gonna show you my ID, if that's okay.
Not necessary.
Yeah, it is on the sheet, and it's entirely there. Thank you for being flexible with us on that.
Excuse me. Can we maintain order, please? Everybody has the right to speak.
I saw a sexually explicit book in the kids section, not the teen section, in the kids section. And that's what led to our discovery that there are 0 limiting principles in your youth collection policy. For those who missed the last meeting, I cited over a dozen sexually explicit passages from a single teen book. It wasn't just one objectionable sentence, and it wasn't just one edgy chapter. The book talked about glory holes, how to use anonymous sex apps, the benefit of lube over spit during anal sex, why massaging a prostate feels so good, how to give blowjobs, and for a final example, how very much the clitoris loves to be licked and kissed. We're not appealing to a moral high ground. We aren't appealing to a nebulous legality. We simply want a reasonable outcome, which is limits for what is allowed to be in the library's collection for minors. Our society already has restriction for children on movies, magazines, websites, businesses, and beverages. By extension, we think it's logical to have some choice subjects restricted for children, just children. Some people might say, if you don't like it, just don't check it out. And I'm actually extremely sympathetic to that position for the general collection. But the best part of going to the library has always been browsing. And we don't want to have to neurotically hover over our kids' shoulders as they browse in the area that's supposed to be pre-screened for their age group. Because just as your libraries cannot pre-screen every book in every section, it's all the more impossible for parents to do so. So we would counter, if you're going to have a book in the kids section, it had better be developmentally appropriate for children. Books that talk about licking buttholes, eating poop, or drinking bottles full of ejaculate are not appropriate for teens. They set kids up to be victims of predatory adults. They degrade their childhood innocence. Have you ever wondered why parents are so ruffled about books all of a sudden? It's because libraries were places that parents trusted to be kid-friendly. The kids section was a place where kids could pick up any book from the shelves and a parent could trust in its appropriateness. Well, we still want those safe places for our kids to foster a love of reading. But inappropriate materials have slipped into the shelves without parents knowing to watch out for them. So we're left feeling betrayed that you didn't care enough about our kids to put guardrails on your collection for them. So we ask you to start protecting our kids from harmful content. Let us foster long childhoods and let kids fully explore the children's section once again, and you'll restore our trust in you.
30 seconds.
On a less emotional level, I'd love for anyone here to help me understand why you're so hesitant to restrict the distribution of pornographic books against parental wishes using taxpayer dollars for children. Freedom of speech doesn't really apply to how adults talk to kids. There needs to be a distinction there, and I think that you all know that. We demand better for our kids. Our authority over them our authority over shaping their childhoods doesn't pause when we pass through the library doors.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
I will get my address. It's a Tim Sisney, yes, I got it, NDY, 1825 East Donald Street, South Bend. I didn't come with prepared remarks, primarily because of the fact that, off the cuff sometimes is helpful. Get a read for the group here. A lot of people here, I'm really surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be. Because, we're in a divisive time, right? Right versus left, black versus white, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This versus that. So this discussion today regarding maybe this book is gay, which is my copy of the book. Something that I could mark up and all of that. And I would disagree with some of the comments that are made. So, but I think the bigger point goes to the young lady who spoke first regarding freedom. If you as parents, and I do understand the point you have regarding sort of policing the library. I think what it comes down to for me is that the whole idea of sex and anything related to sex is very, very difficult for a majority of individuals to deal with. That's me in terms of my take on it. I'm not going to tell anybody what to read, what not to read. I have a grown son, and if he said to me, I want to read this book, I'd say, go ahead and read it. That maybe doesn't make much sense in terms of being in the adolescent section, which, by the way, when I got this book, I actually checked it out from the library in the teen section. I wanted to read it for myself. So there were quotes that were done, that were read from, prepared remarks. My question is for those people who might be here that will be speaking after me, the books that you might consider to be bad or harmful, are they books that you've actually read? Or are you getting your information from other sources that have their own agendas? Read it first. Make your own decisions. Thank you.
My name is Kathy Burnett. You already have my address as well. First, I help regular books, and our whole premise is to uplift books written by marginalized people. That includes Black, Indigenous people of color, and LGBTQ people as well. Earlier, it was said that we should have the authority over our kids. Authority over our kids doesn't stop when we step through the library doors. That means you should be taking care of your kid when you step through the library's doors. You should not abdicate responsibility to the library for what your kid will read, whatever their policies are. Whether they can read all the books or not read all the books, you are still responsible for your child, and you should be, but you should not be responsible for my child. If I want my child to read, this book is gay, then I should let them read it. You shouldn't stop them. Just don't go there, especially if they're minors. Anyone who comes to the library with a minor child and lets them roam through the library by themselves is responsible for what that child picks up. You're not gonna know what they're gonna pick up. And if you let them take that book and they check it out, you can see the title of the book right there. You can look through it before they check it out and determine if it's appropriate for them or not. That's on you. That's on every parent. That's on every guardian. That's on every person who comes to the library. That's not on the library. The library is a place for everyone. If I need someone to read that book, if I have someone to read that book, I want to make sure it's available. Sometimes they say you should go buy the book, but not everyone can afford to go buy books. And this might be the only place they can come and get material that makes them feel seen, that makes them feel safe, that lets them know they have a place in society. That's it.
Hi, my name is Ryan Hill, 2634 Tamarack Place in South Bend. Obviously, on the weekends, I help out at Brandmeier, so and it's always interesting to me to see kind of the reactions on people's faces when they come in there and they see books that represent them in different ways. We've had some comments about issues with certain books. And one of the things that I do, I actually do a lot of work in public policy, and education in that area is really hard. Particularly one of the things that I've found with a lot of recent discussions on gender, on abortion and other things, people don't know a lot about how bodies work, right? It's very scary sometimes talking to people and they're just like, oh, pregnancy is totally safe, right? So when we talk about some of these books that go into areas that might be considered taboo, they might be talking about sexual things that are difficult to discuss. I think I have to strongly say it goes back to what a lot of others have said. When you walk through the door, you're still a parent. This isn't a daycare, right? Kids aren't being watched for that. You still need to be monitoring what they're doing. And most importantly, you need to be ready to talk with them about some of these issues. Because kids grow up and they get through their teens, they don't know how to have conversations on sex. They don't know how to have conversations on what's right and what's wrong about these areas. So that's why some of these books are important, because they're putting those out there and they need to be able to go to their parents and say, what's going on with this? Have a conversation and learn about, you know, what would be abuse and what's not abuse, or what is a consensual relationship and what's not. So the idea of banning these books from the library or moving them where kids can't get them is another step in attempting to kind of silence certain conversations that our society really needs to have and is really bad about. So I can understand a lot of the hesitation from some people, but I see so many times in these conversations about policy issues where we need to be better at having these conversations, and we definitely need to be willing to have them with our kids. So I do see a purpose in having those books here, and especially if parents are doing their job and actually like monitoring them and talking with them when they're looking through the library stats. So that's all I've got to say on that. But
My name is Michelle Gloss, 759 Portage Avenue. So I have a lot to really echo with what a lot of people here have said already. But mainly the public library is for the public. And the public library, therefore, needs to represent the public. It doesn't represent my personal beliefs, and I wouldn't expect it to, because it's not just for me, it's for everybody in the community. If we're worried about books that have sex and murder and rape and all those things in it, I mean, y'all know where I'm going, right? We have to ban the Bible. Because, you know, right in Genesis, you know, what does Lot do? Offers up his 2 virgin daughters to be raped by a mom. And then what happens? His 2 daughters seduce him, have sex with him, and bear his children, right? That sounds a lot like what a lot of folks here just said they would not want their children to read. So it's in the, you know, and there are plenty more of examples, you know, in religious texts. The point that I'm really trying to make here is that restricting any of these readings is a slippery slope to fascism, right? It starts really small. it starts really small and it's insidious. Okay, so these aren't, we don't just jump in to this sort of political environment. It happens in very, very small increments. And so we have to be vigilant to not let that happen now. Thank you.
Jennifer Parker.
Hi there, you have my address on file. I'm here as a parent today, to speak in support of the wonderfully diverse collections of St. Joseph County Public Library. I'm thrilled that these collections support all patrons, regardless of beliefs. Sorry, all patrons regardless of belief. Can you hear me now? Okay. And where people can choose to read what they choose to read. As a parent with preteen daughters, I am so thrilled that this diverse collection is available and allows them to explore a multitude of topics without judgment that we can discuss later as a family. If I don't want my children to read something, I won't let them. Just like I block inappropriate internet content from them and I don't let them watch R-rated movies. Thank you for the collections. Thank you for having all of these opportunities for our children.
Alex Damon.
Afternoon, ladies, gents, and everything else. My name is Alex. I will be withholding my address. I do have it on the sheet. I don't have any prepared remarks today. Just kind of want to say a couple things. Number one is everyone seems to be wanting to talk about sex today. So let's go there. Sex and teens and all of this thing about like LGBT. Has anyone here actually read like a teen romance novel? Why do the straights get to be unabashedly horny and the gays don't? This doesn't make much sense to me, right? But also, like, I have to use the teen section of the library, and I have found some books that do talk about sexuality. I want to highlight one of them now. It's called A Guide to Disabled Sex. This is one that I want to highlight because this isn't something you learn in sex ed. Kids don't know about the fact that kids that disabled people can even have sex. You don't get taught these things. And just the fact that there's this resource out there, it's really important for a lot of people. Cut down these kinds of conversations is essentially just to take this information out of the pool of what people can access. And that is censorship, and frankly, doesn't make sense. I don't have much else to say. Thank you for your time.
Row.
Hi there. Hello, we're good? Yeah. My name's on the sheet there, and thank you for calling out the 30-second mark. That's very helpful. Hi, my name's Ron. I'm a local child and adolescent therapist. Last month, I described how some of the library materials for children could be harmful to a child's development, as well as used for as means for sexual victimization. A child's brain and body is too young to properly process the explicit sexual content you've made available to them. We all recognize as an indication of development, that age is an indication of development. Our culture marks 18 as a legal adulthood. We have identified this as a place where a person's brain and body have developed to take full responsibility for their actions. Despite this, we further limit alcohol use to 21. Why have we accepted this as a culture? Intuitively, we know it allows for further brain and body development. We accept that a person should experience even further development in order to make certain decisions. Try to imagine lowering the age of driving to 9 or drinking alcohol to age 11. You'll be exposing the child to situations which they're not ready for. This would be harmful. An older age provides the best neurological basis for a person to make healthy, reasoned decisions. We also use age limits as one of the factors determining sexual assault. Earlier this month, I met with a 14-year-old girl, call her Sophia, who had been repeatedly raped. As I asked questions, 2 facts were the most important. Sophia is a 14-year-old child, and she had been sexually assaulted. When I later called the Indiana Child Abuse Hotline, I gave them all the details I could. They didn't say, well, she's a teen and therefore able to grapple with more difficult experiences. Now, what was important was that Sophia is a minor and these acts have been done to her. Content in library books like Flamer are not developmentally appropriate for minors. Consider this quote: "You're the faggot. You're the fudge packing, fairy cocksucking, queer pansy faggot." What you need to know is if someone said this to a child, I would be mandated by Indiana to call the abuse hotline to report serious emotional abuse. The 2 most important facts are the words being said, and this book is for minors and easily accessible to children in our library. As a therapist who's continually exposed to trauma, pain, and life-altering harm that they experience through sexual abuse, please remove these to the adult sections. Even saying the words out loud is difficult. While each parent makes decisions on what their child's exposed to, as the library, you make choices on what you expose our community to. Thank you.
With Dr. Martin.
You have my address as well. I didn't come with prepared remarks or big speeches. I just came as a person who was raised by educators to be a lifelong learner. And one of the things that stands out to me that I don't think has really been addressed yet is if you look at history, the terms obscene, pornographic, and harmful have gone through extreme changes over time. And so what fits that definition 50 years ago doesn't necessarily fit the definition today and will not necessarily fit the definition 50 years from now. So what do? I agree with the first woman who spoke that we have trained librarians, good people who will look at things, purchase books, and place them appropriately in the right place. And I also agree that parents do not get to abdicate their responsibility when their child walks through a library door. Thank you.
Amy Yost.
My name is Amy Jobst, 1615 Sunnymead. And thank you so much to so many who already spoke, including our branch manager. I wanted to just sort of reiterate my agreement with so much that you said, that the library is one of the most important resources that we have in our community, and that it's intended to serve all of the community. There are 100%, there are definitely books in this library that I don't agree with, and that I wouldn't want to read. And so I think what's important is that My decision not to read that book or to bring that book into my home is my decision. My opinion shouldn't limit access to others who do want to read that book or who do believe in the values of that book. I also think that if you look at the list of titles from the American Library Association that were requested to be banned in 2022, and it's a long list, the majority of those books are about or written by members of the LGBTQ community or people of color. And so we need to be a library that embraces the diversity of our community. And I want that to be something that we're proud of in our library, that we have materials that are for everyone in our community. So I ask that you utilize the great policy that you already have in place for reconsiderations, where the educated experts, the librarians, get to determine where books get placed and how they are utilized in the library. Thank you.
Kathleen Black.
Good evening, everyone. I'm signed in. I'd like to mention is it 400 beginners or kindergartners that signed up for
1100.
1100, okay. I just wanted to let you know that once they get their library card, these are pictures, these are graphics that I don't really have to read. All I have to do is look and see what is available to them. Can you get a picture of that, sir? All right. This is in the children's section.
Ever heard of a thing called a mirror?
Excuse me.
Grooming.
My children at age 5, 6, and 7 were not ready for this developmentally.
Your children.
I have the floor, excuse me. All right, today I went to the library and I saw a young man who was about, I don't know, he was probably 8 to 10 years old and he was alone. If you don't have your parent there, how can the parent possibly vet the books that the child checks out with his own card? All right, I'm complaining basically about, very graphic images. There's a how-to in Naked. It's also available in the kids section, teen section. Anal intercourse, when a penis is inserted into and held by the anus while partners move their bodies in ways that feel good to them. BDSM describes sexual play or relationships involving exchanges of power and pain.
30 seconds.
Bondage, discipline, or dominance. I would ask the crowd, when you became sexually active, how many people in this room needed a book to figure it out?
Be respectful, please, be respectful.
I understand that most of you.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Rachel Boyle.
Hello. All right, my name is Rachel Boyle. My address is on file and I signed up.
And this library is one of the top 3 reasons that my family and I moved to South Bend last year. We have been so impressed with the excellent programs, the exhibits, the collections, the display of those collections, the space. It's really a true community space that we make use of weekly, if not daily, sometimes. As a historian, an educator, and a parent of 2 young children, it's my responsibility to teach youth how to navigate a world in a thoughtful, ethical way, how to interact with people and ideas that are different or offensive or surprising, or that warrant further exploration. Teaching our youth empathy, critical thinking, safety, and respect is not accomplished by restricting access to information or by removing books that upset a vocal minority. I urge staff and the board of the library to continue with its mission and strategic plan to meet the diverse needs of the community, to support the excellent work of library employees, and to disregard fear-mongering attempts to restrict access to information and interfere with that mission. Thank you.
Claire Garvey. Mike McManus. Know that.
You got it.
Good afternoon, Mike McManus, 51940 Lilac Road, South Bend, Indiana. I would like to thank each of you on the library board. You are citizens that make us proud. You are on the front lines. By the way, ma'am, all the parts you showed, I have all the parts. Everybody in this room does. It seems that many people are beginning not just to express concerns, but to present agendas against all of our public institutions. And that's why I thank you for your service. We've seen it happen in our schools. We've seen it happen to our health department. Now we're seeing it happen here in our library. It's amazing to me how many people come in here and they have pre-printed information or they have books in great detail where they've read page 182, 302, and I'm wondering, did they really do that on their own? Or which group that has freedom or liberty in its name provided it to them? So I'm sincere. You are doing a great job. You must continue to do it on our behalf. And as someone else has so eloquently put earlier, you are the flame holders for the public library, and please keep that job up.
Harry Gilbride.
Hi. My name is Harry Gilbride. I guess we're not doing addresses anymore since some people from outside the community came in and didn't want to do that.
I'm not in a part of an organization.
Excuse me. He has the floor.
So I don't really have any prepared remarks today, but I just wanted to come up and make a few comments based on my observations. I'm sure everyone in this room here is familiar with the images and the footage of rallying Nazis in the 1930s, burning books en masse. This is universally cited as one of the stepping stones on the path to the Holocaust. I think it says everything about these people and their intentions. That they come in here wanting to ban the exact same books that those Nazis were burning in those days. That's because they want to take us to the exact same society that they created there.
That's egregious. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Yes, I have the floor. And so, and so I didn't come with prepared remarks. The analogy is obvious to anyone paying attention. And I think it's sad, and it's really gross to me how they even contradict their own premise by coming up here and getting so much joy in saying these things to a public audience. They're going on about these comments to children. When they come up here and say that stuff, they're showing images in a public gathering where children are present that they claim are too egregious for children to see. That proves their own premise incorrect. It's insane. Especially when you think about that, we do live in the age of the internet. I don't know if everyone's gotten this memo, but if people don't learn this stuff from the library in a constructive environment where you do have the parent there to help them out, and you do have your family there to help make informed decisions with you, they're just gonna go online and who knows what they're gonna learn? Who knows who's gonna be their teacher? Wouldn't you rather be your own kid's teacher? Wouldn't you rather be able to have those conversations with your family instead of driving your children away from your family to learn this stuff in some dark corner online? I mean, whose kids are even gonna speak to them if you force your kids to do that? That's horrible. This has done so much irreparable harm to so many people in our community, and we need to make it end today. And lastly, this might be offensive to some people, but just because you're rich and you're from Granger and you've worked in Washington, DC your whole life, doesn't mean you can come into our community and order
30 seconds.
like we're your little minions. This is a democracy. This is our community. We're not gonna let these people from outside our community, these ultra far right activists, these fringe activists come in and boss us around. Thank you.
Next the line.
My name's Rick Daney, 16240 Branchwood Lane, Granger, Indiana. Not rich and not from Washington. I wasn't gonna say a lot. I didn't come with a prepared speech either, but a couple things that fit me. We live in a society, as been pointed out by many people in here, that is very polarized. It's right or it's left. And one of the things that concerns me is there's no middle ground anymore. I'm very liberal. I came here to stop all the banning of books and burning books and all that stuff was my whole intent. But as I've sat here and listened, there's some people here that I think have some legitimate concerns about their kids. I support diversity, LGBT or whatever, people of color, all those things. I think those need to be there for our youth. But by the same token, after I've listened to some of these people and some of the terminology that's used, it concerns me. And I've got grandchildren that are very small. And I don't want them to be denied that, but there needs to be a middle ground between it's either all right or all wrong. We've forgotten there's a middle. We talked about being 18 years old to drink. We talk about being on the internet. There needs to be a place where these books are available. And again, hearing the parents, we can't always be there, but there needs to be a place where these books are available. But maybe with parent permission, have access to it, where they can still get it, but parent doesn't have to be there. Parent can review it. If they think it's okay, fine. If the parent says no, then the child doesn't have access. But it's there. That way it's controlled. Both sides get to have it. It doesn't have to be an all or none. You gotta be middle. You gotta learn to give and take in this society. That's been the problem, I think, across the board, all over the place. There is no more middle ground. And I hope we can find it, because I think they're good. I think everybody here is good people. And we want what's best for our kids and our society. But we gotta learn to respect everybody too. Okay, thank you.
Mary McNulty. Cynthia Heckman Davis.
I pass.
All right, I'm gonna try with this one.
If it's not legible, move to the
Ashley
next
Keith,
one.
PhD, Dr. Ashley.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Ashley Keith. I live at 1106 Kenyon. If any of you want to come and chit chat with me, I'm happy to give you a cup of tea or a bourbon if it makes it easier. That you'd be fine. And respectful when we have conversation. I don't have living children. I don't have living children, but I have the great good fortune to be trusted to teach and to tutor in this community, both privately and publicly. And I spend a lot of time with books. Couple things I did see today. I was surprised by some of the explicitness of the books in this conversation, but also not. Last summer, I spent time with 5 grade school children, taking them to the beach, just basically hanging out. One of those days, we did the summer reading program. So we spent a lot of time with these 5 children once a week at the library. I think it is absolutely important that parents and all adults who are with our children protect them. And you do that by sitting with them. I think we've come to an area in our society where we talk to children from the top down. And this no longer works. They have access to information 24/7 that most of us as adults were never given that opportunity, and I think shouldn't have had. Okay, but this is what they have. So what it took was, I saw one of those books, and I was amazed when I saw a 7-year-old going to reach for this book. Seemed there were 2 more over there. Seemed like a lot of activity for 2 small children in the library. So I went to take a look at the book. What it takes, I was shocked, but what it really takes is humor and patience and an absolute willingness to go wherever it is our children take us. When they have a question, grabbing that book, hiding it away, they're gonna find it. What they need is for us to sit with them and say, oh, you're interested in this book, why? You're interested in body parts. Well, let's go find a better book or another book, okay? Which is what we did. We went and found an anatomy book. We did biology and got rid of all the sex things. I'm like, well, maybe next summer we'll come back to this one, okay?
30 seconds.
Most of the time, you can just, you can deflect. Answer what they need the best you can directly and try to channel the rest. Thank you.
Jessica Logan. Yeah. Lori Ladow.
Hi, my name is Lori Ladow. I live at 20614 Heights Drive. I am a lifelong reader. I started reading when I was 5. I remember when I was in 4th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Brown, had a contest to see who could read the most pages for the year, and I won. And I was in the school library every day, checking out books. And it just developed me as a person, and I know a lot of the people in this room. And I have continued that. Today I read literally about 140 books a year. So, and I read books that challenge me. I read books to my daughter that challenged us. I have young grandchildren, and I hope to read books that challenge them, because that's how we grow. We learn about things that make us uncomfortable, we talk about them, we learn more, we have more conversations. So many of the people in this room today have made good points. Some I agree with, some I don't. Again, that's what reading is. I don't agree with all the points. I don't agree with everything I read. And if I really don't like it, I don't finish it, I put the book aside. Sometimes I go back to it. So I think we have the most amazing library. I work with people all the time that tell me that. And I would hate to see that changed because of a small group of people who have a different opinion. Thank you.
Sonia Gearning. Dane Sherman.
Thank you all for being here. Dave Sherman, I'm gonna withhold my address because of the right-wing fascists. Oh, I'm sorry.
Speak.
Okay, now can I start? I first want an image for Kathleen Black, the woman who was like showing us the books, and that image is me. I am alive because of the books that I was able to read as a kid. And so absolutely absurd to be showing pictures of vaginas and being like, oh my gosh. To my friend over here asking for a competent middle ground. There is no middle ground on my life. And I am so sick and tired of talking about a competent middle ground between existence. I'm willing to talk with anyone. And if you get to know me in person, you know that I am willing and able to talk with anyone. I'm not going to talk about my existence. I was born between 3 parents, 2 gay dads and a single lesbian mom of 3. And when my mom was 14, she was kicked out of her house for being lesbian. And when my dad was 17, he was kicked out for being gay. I lost my dad when I was 8 due to addiction and my mom to suicide when I was 12. I am so sick and tired of trying to find middle ground when it comes to representing and acknowledging the existence of people who are different than you. The fundamental thing about books is they bridge empathy. They are a absolute biggest imaginer of empathy and making the world bigger for people. To my friend who talks about being a counselor and talks about a 14-year-old being assaulted, how dare you use the experience of a little girl being assaulted to try to talk about this issue? She's not assaulted because of books. She's assaulted because of a predatory Catholic church or the Boy Scouts or any of those other organizations. It's not because she was able to read a book that she was able to see someone else who was different from herself. For those talking about internet filters, are you kidding me? Books and internet filters are not the same thing. And I'm not gonna sit here and let you try to conflate the two. I think.
Why do we have filters?
We have 30 seconds.
Anyways, I think the most important thing that we should be talking about is the same questions that Jesus himself walked around and talked about. He asked 2 questions every single day. Who is power oppressing and who is religion missing? And he went and he walked with those people, he ate with them, and he walked towards the just and promised land with them. Don't use religion or anything. Jesus was a martyr, not a
Hi, my name is Christina Walbrecht. You have my address on file. You can also Google me and find me if you want to. First, as a parent, I want to join those who have thanked the library. I brought my oldest daughter upstairs to the 3rd floor when she was 6 weeks old. Even my mother thought maybe that was a little early. But as my daughter's grown into adulthood, I really give a lot of the credit to this public library system, and I brag about it all the time when we're recruiting people, etc. I'm a professor of political science at the University of Notre Dame. I do not, let me be clear, speak for the University of Notre Dame. I do, however, speak for myself, and as someone who has spent 30 years, her entire adult life, reading about, learning about, and studying democracy and democratic processes. Libraries are essential to democracy. The free exchange of ideas, access to ideas and to facts and to information makes it possible for a democracy to work. From the very beginning in Athens, the concern was that people would not have the capacity to select their own rulers. And so having access to information is absolutely essential to democracy. The other thing that we know without question, and has already been sort of alluded to from the history of the world, frankly, is that communities which begin by limiting access to information, including through book bans, are communities that do evolve in a more authoritarian, non-democratic direction. That is simply the story of the history of the world. These are little pieces, but they're part of a broader piece, an assault on our access to information, assault on the very truth and facts as we understand them and debate them. I am so delighted to live in a country that has public libraries that make it possible for everyone to have access to information. And I know as a political scientist that public libraries are a key piece of the future and the past of our democracy.
More.
More?
Yeah, sorry, I missed the page. Judy Fox.
Sorry, she's on her way.
Judy Fox, 16030 Baywood Lane, Granger, Indiana. So as luck would have it, I'm towards the end of the line and I'm an attorney, and so you're gonna get a closing argument here. I didn't prepare to come today. I'm very glad I did. Today raises a lot of concerns, as been said by many people, and I agree with most everything that was said today. Banning books is the first step towards autocratic government. And it's a line that in the sand that we must draw. And I want to thank all of you for being firm and living by your principles. The library has a good policy to review whether a book is quote unquote pornographic. And that policy was stated today, and we heard it again, and it can be used by people who have deep concerns. It is a very interesting rhetorical use that has been being used all across our country these days to pick out very little snippets that might seem the most offensive to people for an argument to ban a very long list of books, most of which, by the way, I have read, and I would ask many of you to try to read. We cannot let that happen to us. We cannot let us go down that path. People have every right to challenge a book and go through the process. But we also have to be responsible citizens. I am the mother and the grandmother of many people, one of whom happens to be a gay young teenager. And my deepest concern is that the books that are targeted almost always are about that population and that community. My granddaughter herself spoke to me about how you're exposed, you read all about teen romances, but you never could read a romance that made her feel that she wasn't abnormal, that there wasn't something wrong with her. Yeah. And if we go down the path that we're starting to go down and banning those kinds of books, you are putting my granddaughter's health, safety, and frankly, life in danger. I ask you, in fact, I beg you, to stand up for what is right, which is what you're doing now, and know that the community is behind you. Yes, there's a great minority out there who want to change things, and I fear this isn't the end of this. We know the tactics, we know how these work, but the community has, our eyes are open now.
30
We
seconds.
won't let it happen here. Thank you.
Weissman. Zoe Giver.
My name is Zoe Giver. I live on 2717 Rockney Drive, South Bend, 46615. When I heard that there was a possibility of books being banned today, I hurried up when I left work and I came immediately here. And I'm here today for a couple of reasons. First, as a teacher, reading is very important to me. It's important that children have access to all books. During multiple professional developments, we are told that we need to have books in our classrooms that are diverse. They need to show different types of people, cultures, and lifestyles. LGBTQ people are a part of that. I had a student once feel so proud when I read a story that showed a family with two moms. They said, "Hey, they're like my moms." It is a magical moment when you can personally relate to the characters in the stories. Who are we to deny a child that moment? Now, the issue at hand seems to be with older children and what they are allowed to read. As a queer adult, I wish I had access to books that young people today had when I was a young adult. Because the truth is, whether people want to accept it or not, queer youth exists. They need to have books that talk about their life and their experiences. This book is gay was written by a queer author who wanted to write a book that she would have found beneficial to herself as a queer adolescent, as well as a book that could help protect young people in the age of the internet where misinformation is rampant, because books and the internet are two totally different places. As someone who had to obtain their information from the internet and online chat rooms because these resources did not exist, I can say this book probably could have saved me a lot of pain. Whoever the woman was that asked, "Hey, could this book have helped you?" Yes, because I'm sorry, we don't learn how to have homosexual sex from anybody. So that's not taught anywhere. So yes, a book would have been very, very helpful. I have to say that whatever a child may do after reading a book such as that is not the book's fault. It is not the library's fault. It's the parents. Do your job and be a parent. Don't let the library do it for you. Sit down with your child and talk with them before someone else who has more insidious ideas does it for you. Lastly, there have been several books told about what happens when books are banned. Those books were meant to teach against banning books. If that's not the message you got, you may want to read it again. Banning books of any kind, let alone those of any LGBTQ nature, will only begin as Ray Bradbury foretold and end as Alan Moore warned. As a government-funded public service and entity, book banning is tantamount to the impediment of free speech, which runs counter to the First Amendment. There can be nothing more un-American than the suppression of speech, and in turn, the suppression of an entire group of a protected class of people, which seems now more than ever becoming an increasingly endangered class of people. In no sane world can a library stand for the banning of books. People are allowed to make whatever decisions they want for themselves and their children based on what they believe. What's not okay is making that decision for others and what they are allowed to experience.
Thank you all for your comments. Our next board meeting will be September 18th, 4:15 p.m. here at the Learning Center, St. Joseph County Library. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. I will call the roll. I'm not sure why I need to. Ann?
Aye.
Terry? Aye. Christine?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Ruth?
Aye.
And I will aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
now.